From golfers shamelessly breaking the rules on live TV to lifelong bans for extreme violations. These are the 20 biggest cheating scandals in golf history. And first we start with number 20. We're heading to Memphis, where Bryson gave us one of the most bizarre moments ever seen on the golf course. It's the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational, and Bryson's tee shot on the 7th hole has found trouble near a tree. But what happens next is absolutely unbelievable. As DeChambeau approaches his ball, he spots something that catches his eye. The gallery leans in, television cameras zoom. What could it be? A dangerous snake? A hornet's nest? Nope. It's an ant, and Bryson sees an opportunity. For those who don't know, golf's rule 16.2.a, the dangerous animal condition rule, allows players relief if they might face serious physical injury from dangerous animals like poisonous snakes, alligators, or fire ants. See where this is going? DeChambeau calls over rules official, and what follows is nearly 3 minutes of the most surreal rules discussion you'll ever hear in professional golf. It's a different color, DeChambeau insists, pointing at the ground, trying to convince him that this single ant poses a clear and present danger to his next shot. The official is not that sure, and the back and forth continues, until finally, he delivers the verdict. No relief. The result? DeChambeau had to play the ball as it lay, making a double bogey that surely stung more than any ant could have. Looks like Bryson's attempt at cheating the rules with an ant-sized loophole didn't work out, but some players have been a lot more successful when it comes to bending the rules. Which brings us to number 19. We're rewinding to 2008, where the first chapter of the Patrick Reed controversy saga begins. We all know his infamous incidents, but do you know about his shocking college cheating scandal? Back then, Reed had enrolled at the University of Georgia with high hopes and even higher expectations. But what unfolded during his time there would set the stage for years of controversy to come. First came alcohol violations, 2 of them, plus an arrest for underage drinking and possessing a fake ID. But that was just the appetizer for what was about to unfold. The real drama began when items started disappearing from the team's locker room. A watch, a putter, and $400 in cash. Not exactly small change for college students. And get this, the very next day, Reed shows up flashing a thick wad of cash. Suspicious? You bet. But we're not even at the best part of the story. During a qualifying round, Reed's teammates witnessed something that would cement their suspicions. His ball had landed in the rough. Bad lie, tough shot. We've all been there. But somehow, mysteriously, when they found it, the ball had migrated closer to the fairway. It was like the golf ball had grown legs and decided to take a little walk to a better spot. When his teammates confronted him, Reed stood his ground, denying any wrongdoing. But the damage was done. The combination of these incidents led to his dismissal from the team, forcing him to transfer to Augusta State. It's worth noting that similar accusations would follow him there, and this pattern would follow Reed throughout his professional career. Number 18 takes us to Jakarta in 2005 for what would become known as Jakartagate, a scandal that started as whispers but eventually exploded into full-blown accusations of cheating. And at the center of it all, Colin Montgomery. During the second round of the Indonesian Open, Montgomery faced a routine bunker shot when the weather took a turn. A delay was called, forcing players off the course. Nothing unusual. But what happened next? That's where things got messy. When play resumed, Montgomery returned to find his unmarked ball missing from the greenside bunker. No problem. Just replace it, right? Well, not exactly. Video evidence would later show that when Montgomery replaced his ball, it wasn't quite where it had been. The new spot appeared significantly more favorable than the original lie. We're talking inches. But in golf, inches can be the difference between saving par and scrambling for bogey. At the time, Montgomery wasn't penalized. In fact, he kept playing, finished the tournament, and walked away with £24,000. But as the footage made the rounds, the questions kept growing. And then came the real eyebrow raiser. Montgomery suddenly donated his entire tournament earnings to charity. A classy move or a guilty conscience? The real bombshell dropped 4 years later, in 2009, when fellow European Tour veteran Sandy Lyle, who just so happened to be competing with Montgomery for the 2010 Ryder Cup captaincy, publicly called out the incident as a form of cheating. And just like that, the whispers turned into outright accusations. Montgomery was never officially penalized, but in the court of public opinion, His reputation had already taken a hit that no drop, no bunker rake, and no donation could erase. For number 17, we're at the 2010 PGA Championship at Whistling Straits, where Dustin Johnson was about to learn a lesson about reading the fine print, the hard way. It's Sunday afternoon, and Johnson is playing the golf of his life. He's made clutch birdies at the 13th, 16th, and 17th holes. Walking to the 72nd tee, he's got a one-shot lead. Major glory is literally one hole away. His drive drifts right, landing in what looks like a patch of trampled dirt. Nothing unusual on a course where thousands of spectators have been walking all week. There are beer cans, cups, and all sorts of debris scattered around. Johnson, focused on closing out his first major, grounds his club and plays his shot. No big deal, right? What Johnson didn't know, what almost nobody remembered at that moment, was that Whistling Straits had a very specific local rule. Those countless sandy areas scattered across the course, all of them, even the ones that looked like worn-out dirt patches, even the ones spectators had been standing in all week, were officially classified as bunkers. We're talking about nearly 1,000 bunkers, some no bigger than your office chair. As Johnson walked off the 18th green, thinking he was headed to a playoff, rules officials approached him. The verdict? 2-stroke penalty for grounding his club in a bunker. Just like that, Johnson went from potential champion to tied for 5th. Was it cheating? Probably not. But somehow the officials thought otherwise. Let's travel back to 1985 for number 16, where a young Vijay Singh made a decision that would nearly destroy his career before it really began. Singh was 22 years old, struggling to make his mark on the Asian Tour when he arrived at the Indonesian Open in Jakarta. Like many young pros, he was having more downs than ups and desperately needed a good showing. As the second round came to a close, he was one stroke short of making the cut. For a struggling young pro, missing the cut meant no paycheck, no ranking points, and another step backward in his career. But somewhere between Singh's final putt and the moment he signed his scorecard, a mysterious transformation occurred. His score improved by exactly one stroke, just enough to make the cut. The odds of this being a coincidence? Well, the Indonesian Golf Association officials weren't buying it. The evidence was damning enough that Singh was indefinitely suspended from the Southeast Asian Golf Federation. Sure, he fought his way back through satellite tours in Europe and Africa, slowly rebuilding his reputation stroke by stroke. But back then, his career seemed almost over. Coming in at number 15, and here we are in 2013 at the BMW Masters, where Simon Dyson learned that in the age of high-definition television, no movement goes unnoticed. During the second round, Dyson faced a routine putt on the 8th green. What happened next would drain 37,500 pounds from his wallet, drag his name through the mud, and push his reputation into disaster. Dyson marked his ball, but before replacing it, he used his ball marker to tap down a spike mark in his putting line. Now, to non-golfers, this might seem trivial. What's the big deal about smoothing out a tiny mark on the green? But in golf, this is absolutely forbidden. The incident might have gone unnoticed, except for those pesky TV cameras. When confronted, Dyson claimed it was a momentary lapse, an unconscious action. So, their verdict? It was somewhat surprising. They believed it wasn't premeditated cheating, but still handed down a 2-month suspended ban and a 30,000-pound fine, plus 7,500 pounds in costs. Cheating? Maybe not in his eyes, but the TV viewer who caught it saw things differently. And in golf, once the word cheating enters the conversation, there's no erasing it. Number 14 brings us to what many consider the biggest cheating scandal in women's golf history, a controversy that would split the LPGA Tour right down the middle. But before we dive in, 20,000 subs is almost in sight. We just hit the 15K mark and I need your help to get there. Please subscribe and help a golfer out. Now, back to the scandal. The year was 1972, and Jane Blalock was the top money winner on the LPGA Tour. But beneath her success, trouble was brewing. And it wasn't just one or two players making accusations, we're talking about a full-scale revolt. Multiple LPGA players had been watching Blalock, convinced she was systematically cheating by improving her lies and improperly marking her ball on the green. Things reached boiling point at the Bluegrass Invitational in Louisville. After the second round, the LPGA Executive Board called Blalock in, disqualified her, and slapped her with a $500 fine. But that wasn't enough for her fellow players. 27 LPGA players signed an affidavit demanding even tougher consequences. The LPGA responded by suspending Blaylock for 1 year and freezing her tour earnings, around $50,000, a significant sum in 1972. But get this, there was no video evidence, no photos, nothing, just the word of the other players. Blaylock insisted she was innocent, and the whole thing split the world of women's professional golf in a way that would take years to mend. Unlucky number 13 takes us to the 2014 Canadian Pacific Women's Open, where Chella was about to get cheated by golf's rules. It's the final hole of her second round, and Choi is facing a short par putt. Just routine stuff, right? Mark the ball, clean it, put it back, and roll it in. Except, that's not quite how it played out. Television cameras caught something suspicious. When Choi replaced her ball, it wasn't quite where she'd picked it up from. We're not talking feet here, or even inches. We're talking about the tiniest of margins, the kind of difference that most sports would ignore completely. But this is golf, where precision isn't just expected, it's demanded. When officials reviewed the footage, they were clear. The ball had been replaced in a slightly different position. 2-stroke penalty. But this wasn't even the worst part. See, Choi was already flirting with the cut line, and those 2 strokes would push her over the edge, missing the cut by a single stroke. So, what did she do? Instead of accepting the penalty and heading home, Choi made a decision that left officials stunned. She refused to accept the penalty at all. The result? Automatic disqualification. Was it pride? Principle? I don't know for sure, but she went down in history after that. For number 12, we're heading to the 2003 Open Championship. And here Mark Rowe and Jesper Parnevik gave us one of the most heartbreaking, unlucky, cheating fiascos in major championship history. Mark, a journeyman pro, had just played the round of his life at Royal St. George's. We're talking about a 67, one of the best scores of the day, that put him just 2 shots off the lead heading into the final round. The stuff dreams are made of, right? But there was one tiny detail that would turn this dream into a nightmare. Before their round, Mark and Jesper had made a mistake so simple it seemed almost impossible. They forgot to swap scorecards. They each recorded their scores perfectly accurately, just on the wrong cards. They didn't even realize anything was wrong until after they'd signed their cards and left the scoring area. The result? Both players were disqualified. Mark's potential fairy tale turned into a cruel joke, all because of a simple card swap that never happened. Sliding in at number 11, where Patrick Reed, yes, him again, found himself at the center of yet another cheating controversy. The incident occurred during the 3rd round. Reed was in a waste bunker, his ball sitting in a less-than-ideal lie. But during his practice swings, Reed appeared to move sand from behind his ball, twice. Now, while you're allowed to ground your club in a waste bunker, you absolutely cannot move sand to improve your lie. The penalty was 2 strokes, turning his bogey into a triple bogey and dropping him from 1 stroke off the lead to 3 back. But the real damage? That was to his already shaky reputation. The whole thing set the golf world on fire, with players and fans once again questioning Reed's integrity. Fellow pros weren't shy about sharing their thoughts either. Brooks Koepka flat out called it building sandcastles, and others hinted that this wasn't exactly Reed's first rodeo when it came to bending the rules. And Reed's response: at the end of the day, you've got to let things kind of roll off your shoulders. Easy to say when you're cementing your spot as golf's most controversial figure. But while Reed tried to shrug it off, the whispers of cheater weren't going anywhere. If anything, they were getting louder. Because in golf, once that label sticks, it's almost impossible to shake. And now we arrive at number 10, possibly the most bizarre penalty in golf history. The year is 2019, and Leanne Walker is competing in the Senior LPGA Championship at French Lick, Indiana. What happened next would make her famous, but not in the way any golfer dreams about. Here's the setup. In 2019, golf implemented a new rule that prohibited caddies from standing behind players as they lined up their shots. Simple enough, right? Well, nobody told Walker, who hadn't played competitively since 2011. Throughout her first round, and part of her second, Walker's caddy stood behind her on practically every putting stroke, just like they'd done for her entire career. The violation was finally pointed out by her playing partners on the 14th hole of her second round. Officials had to go back through her rounds and count every single instance where her caddy had lined her up. The final tally? Brace yourself. 42 penalty strokes added to her first round, and another 16 to her second round. That's 58 penalty strokes total. Her original scores of 85 and 74 became 127 and 90. Yes, 127 in a single round. It's probably the highest score ever recorded in a professional tournament, and it happened not because of poor play, but because of a rule change she didn't know about. Number 9 takes us to the 2010 Kia Classic, where Wee was in contention for the win, until one fateful moment turned everything upside down. It all started on the 11th hole when her ball found the water. No big deal, right? Players hit into hazards all the time. But what happened next would cost her a shot at victory and spark one of the most bizarre cheating incidents in golf history. So, what happened? Well, rather than taking a penalty drop, Michelle went for the heroic play, stepping into the water with her right foot and attempting to splash the ball out. The fans loved it. Michelle versus the elements, a true competitor. And she actually pulled it off, sort of. The ball barely moved, but at least it was back in play. But then, in a split second, everything changed. Whether it was instinct, habit, or just an unlucky reflex, Michelle let her club touch the ground after the shot, an automatic violation of golf's strict hazard rules. And just like that, a gutsy move turned into a costly blunder. A two-stroke penalty knocked her out of contention, leaving her with nothing but frustration and one of the most infamous excuses in golf history. But hey, at least her white skirt survived the splash, right? For number 8, we're diving into a mystery email, a shocking penalty, and a moment that shook the golf world to its core. Lexi Thompson was on the verge of her second major championship, playing brilliant golf and holding the lead. Victory seemed inevitable. Then, out of nowhere, came an email that changed everything. Some random viewer sitting at home with their DVR had been watching the previous day's coverage when they noticed something. A tiny, almost imperceptible movement as Thompson marked her ball on the 17th green during Saturday's round. They rewound, watched again, rewound once more. And then, deciding to play armchair rules official, they sent an email to the LPGA, claiming Thompson had replaced her ball maybe an inch from where it originally lay. Tournament officials reviewed the footage and brutally agreed. But the worst part? Timing. This wasn't discovered until the next day, long after Thompson had signed her scorecard. And because of that, she wasn't just penalized for the incorrect ball placement. She was hit with an extra two-stroke penalty for signing an incorrect scorecard. 4 strokes gone, just like that. The ruling turned her one-shot lead into a 3-shot deficit, ripping away her chance at a major title. Fans were furious. Players were outraged, and the debate over whether a viewer at home should be able to influence a tournament exploded. But for Thompson, it didn't matter. The damage was done, and one of the most controversial rulings in golf history had just rewritten her fate. Coming in at number 7, we head to the 1983 Skins game and the controversy that became known as Leafgate, a moment that would spark accusations of cheating and strain the friendship between two golf legends, Tom Watson and Gary Player. The stakes? A massive $120,000, more than most regular tour events paid their winners at the time. Every shot mattered, and tensions were already high. Player was preparing for a crucial chip shot, with Watson watching intently. That's when Watson spotted something he didn't like. Player moved what appeared to be a leaf from behind his ball. Now, this is where golf's rules get dangerously specific. If the leaf was loose, no problem. But if it was attached to the ground, removing it would be a clear violation. Watson, known for his strict adherence to the rules, was convinced Player had improved his lie by illegally moving an attached leaf. In other words, he believed Player was cheating. Player, however, insisted the leaf was loose and that he had done nothing wrong. With no definitive camera angle to prove either side, the debate raged on. It was the ultimate he said situation. But this wasn't just about the money. This was about integrity. Watson left the course that day furious, convinced that Player had crossed the line. Player, meanwhile, took home $170,000, while Watson left with just $10,000, and a grudge that would last for years. The accusations of cheating cast a long shadow over their friendship, and while time may have softened the edges, many still wonder, did Player get away with one? At number 6, we're looking at the 2013 Masters, where Tiger Woods was accused of cheating and almost got disqualified over a rules mix-up. It all started on the 15th hole during the second round. Woods, in classic Tiger fashion, fired a perfect approach shot. only for it to slam into the flagstick and ricochet straight into the water. A brutal break. What happened next turned into one of the most controversial situations in Masters history. Tiger dropped his ball as close as possible to the original spot, played the shot, and finished his round. No problem, right? Well, not quite. Later, in a post-round interview, Woods made a seemingly harmless comment, but one that would set off alarm bells. He mentioned that he had dropped the ball 2 yards further back from where he originally played to get a better angle. That was a major red flag. The rule states that a replayed shot must be dropped as close as possible to the original spot. And 2 yards? That wasn't exactly as close as possible. By the time officials caught wind of it, Woods had already signed his scorecard, a situation that normally means an automatic disqualification. But it looked like they had special treatment for Mr. Woods. Instead of a DQ, the Masters Committee retroactively assessed a 2-stroke penalty, citing a new rule that allowed them to waive disqualification if a penalty was based on a ruling mistake. The catch? They had actually reviewed Woods' drop earlier and deemed it legal, only realizing the error after his post-round interview. In the end, Tiger played on but finished 4 shots behind the winner, Adam Scott. But the debate? That never really went away. Cracking the top 5, and surprise, surprise, it's Patrick Reed again. Yes, for the 3rd time in our countdown, because when it comes to cheating scandals, this man is practically a regular. This time, we're diving into the infamous embedded ball saga, a moment that had fans, players, and commentators shaking their heads and wondering, did Reed just bend the rules again? So here's what happened. During the 3rd round, Reed's approach shot on the 10th hole landed in the rough. On arrival, he picked up the ball, claiming it was embedded, meaning he was entitled to a free drop under the rules. But here's the problem. Video replay clearly showed the ball had bounced first before settling into the rough. And in almost every case, a ball that bounces does not embed. Things got even sketchier when Reed marked the spot, picked up the ball, and even pressed his fingers into the ground before calling in a rules official. By the time the official arrived, the ball was already out of its original lie, and Reed was left explaining what had happened. He later claimed that nearby volunteers told him the ball didn't bounce, but the footage told a different story. Then came the real controversy. CBS aired the replay showing the bounce, and suddenly, golf fans were outraged. Reed still got his free drop, leading to accusations of favoritism and yet another dent in his already shaky reputation. And Reed's response? At the end of the day, it's my word against their word. Oh sure, because that's exactly what an innocent person would say, right? At number 4, we're diving into one of the most shocking rule violations in women's golf history. Michelle Wie's pro debut, tainted by a controversy that left fans questioning whether she had knowingly cheated. It was 2005 at the Samsung World Championship, and Michelle, just 16 years old, was making headlines as a phenom ready to take over the golf world. But what should have been a historic moment quickly spiraled into a nightmare. It all happened on the 7th hole in the 3rd round. Michelle's ball landed in a bush, forcing her to take an unplayable drop. She made a solid recovery, chipping to 15 feet and saving par. Everything seemed fine, until Sports Illustrated's Michael Bamberger noticed something strange. He didn't say anything immediately. Instead, after the round, he measured the drop distance himself and later questioned Michelle about it. When she explained her triangle thing for ensuring she wasn't closer to the hole, Bamberger grew more suspicious. The next day, after Michelle had finished tied for 4th and was set to cash her first pro paycheck of $53,126, LPGA officials stepped in. After remeasuring the spot, they found her drop had been about a foot closer to the hole than it should have been, a clear rule violation. And the consequence? Disqualification for signing an incorrect scorecard. Just like that, her first pro payday vanished. Whether it was an honest mistake or something more, one thing was clear. Michelle's debut wasn't making headlines for the reasons she had hoped. And now our top 3 of the biggest cheating scandals ever seen on the golf course. This one takes us to the 1999 Phoenix Open, where Tiger Woods, again, gave us one of the most memorable and controversial rulings in golf history. See, Woods' ball has come to rest behind a massive boulder in the desert. Most players would take an unplayable lie. But Tiger? He had a different idea entirely. Woods called over a rules official and posed a simple question. Was this boulder, weighing nearly a ton, considered a loose impediment? The official, after careful consideration, said yes. What happened next was pure theater. Woods didn't try to move it himself. Instead, he enlisted the help of several spectators. A dozen fans, working together, managed to move this massive rock out of Woods' way. Was it within the rules? Technically, yes. But many felt it violated the spirit of the game. The incident was so iconic that the boulder now has its own plaque at TPC Scottsdale, commemorating the moment when Tiger Woods turned gallery members into impromptu landscapers. While the moment was overshadowed by laughter, I can't help but wonder, why is no one talking about cheating here? Or maybe the rules official just happened to be a big Tiger fan. Guess we'll never know. For number 2, let's head to the 2018 US Open at Shinnecock Hills, where Phil Mickelson did something so wild it had people calling for his disqualification. It was the third round, and Mickelson was struggling on some of the toughest greens in US Open history. What happened next shocked everyone. On the 13th hole, Mickelson had a downhill putt that was clearly going to roll way past the hole, possibly even off the green. But instead of letting the ball stop, Mickelson did the unthinkable. He ran after it and hit it back toward the hole while it was still moving. The golf world was in complete shock. This wasn't just a rules violation, it was a blatant move against one of golf's core rules. Mickelson's explanation didn't help much. He admitted he knew the rule, but said he thought a 2-stroke penalty was better than letting the ball roll off the green. Fair enough. And finally, number 1. The most blatant cheating scandal in recent golf history. It's 2023 at the PGA Tour Canada's Ottawa Open, where Justin Doden would later call his actions the biggest mistake of my life. Curious what happened? Well, Justin needed to make the cut to earn a paycheck. After a disastrous double bogey 7 on the 18th hole, he knew he was out. But instead of accepting it, he did the unthinkable. He erased the 7 on his scorecard and replaced it with a 5, just enough to sneak inside the cut line. This wasn't a gray area or a misunderstanding. This was straight-up cheating. But golf is a game of integrity, and cheating never stays hidden for long. His playing partners noticed something was off when they saw the posted scores, and when officials checked his scorecard, the evidence was undeniable. You could literally see where the 7 had been erased. Before the investigation could even be completed, Justin quietly withdrew, likely knowing what was coming. Then, 3 days later, he took to social media with a public confession that stunned the golf world. "I cheated in golf. This is not who I am. I let my sponsors, competitors, family, and myself down." And just like that, his career was over. But hey, at least he went out with a little bit of honesty, even if it came 3 days too late. Oh, and now you're still here. We have another great video for you right in the middle of the screen. Enjoy.